Okay, folks. Hi, folks. This is welcome to the Will to Win podcast. I'm your host, Will Cook, and today I have a very special guest, the man behind the lights, the legendary lighting director, Marc Brickman. I've been watching Mark's work since I was a kid. From Pink Floyd to David Gilmour, his work has absolutely blown me away for decades. Mark is a creative genius. He's worked with Paul McCartney, Bruce Springsteen, and some of the biggest artists on the planet. He's also the visionary behind those incredible light displays on the Empire State Building. But what I'm most excited about isn't just talking about the lights. I want to know what makes a creative genius tick. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome Marc Brickman.
Thanks, Will. I appreciate
Welcome.
it. I'm
You're
blushing, but you probably can't see that. But thank you
you're
for the
very
kind
welcome.
intro.
Go ahead, my friend. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm good. It's Friday, and the weekend's here, and it's all good. I'm in my studio, and after we get finished this, I'm gonna go try to attempt to finish a painting, but I probably won't. But I'll definitely get somewhere with it.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your studio and what's behind you.
Well, what's behind me are prints of um of the work. Uh, Probably over I don't know, a lot of years. But these are for sale. They're on my website. Some are painted and some are photographs by a photographer called Blanche, and she's really, really talented. I have other prints over here, and I got some original paintings. They're all on the website, and I'm just going to mention that it's myname.com. And but really, what happened was probably about 25 years ago, maybe longer. I hooked up with Blue Man Group and I moved to New York. At the time, I met my current wife, and we moved in together. And it just so happened I got an artist loft down at on the corner of Mulberry and Grand in Little Italy. That same famous place that was in the news yesterday. It was amazing. And my wife is a really talented, incredible, talking about creative genius. She's beyond anything I could ever imagine. I still haven't figured out why she married me, but she really encouraged me to start painting because she saw all my doodles. I have just books and books and books of doodles and scribbles, and you know how everyone does that when they're talking or thinking. And I started painting. We had this just incredible space to do it in, and it became really. I don't know. I really was really calm when I was doing it, and it just allowed me to explore. I wasn't trained. I started learning about all the tools and details, and that's kind of how I got into lighting. Also, I just started learning, and
Mhm.
she was very supportive. And through the years, I did it. I had a studio at home in my garage. I converted the garage. And when we left New York and went back to Malibu, we converted the garage. I continued painting, and then the pandemic came. It was probably about, well, I don't know, 2022. Uh, Things really had changed, shifted for everyone. I got older, and I decided that the one thing the garage was limiting was the space. In New York, I had a really big loft with high ceilings, and I could paint really large. I have canvases in storage that are just enormous,
Oh, wow.
and I haven't looked at them in 20 years plus. And so I came up here, just happened to come up to Ventura. A friend of mine told me, I was just offhandedly said, I'm looking for a space. And the garage door opened into space, and I just walked in, and this wall behind me was white. And the room, it was just, I just said, I'll take it. Um, I didn't even think about it. And I've been here 4 years now, and I rented another space right across the driveway. There's a couple shapers, surfboard shapers. One legend is in the corner, a guy about my age, and another young guy right across the driveway. And then I have it. There's another space filled with bobcats, the front loaders. And then it's my I'm building it right now as my gallery,
Oh,
and
wow.
mostly because no galleries will ever exhibit my work. I mean, I've
Okay.
or museums or any of that. I'm not really regarded as an artist. I'm
Yes.
regarded as I think people regard me and what I do and the work I've done over the years just as a technician. Um, when I have tried, and I've met, I mean, I know incredible people, I know incredible artists, other painters, they all consider me an artist. But the curators, the people that run the galleries, and I'm not being bitter, I'm just, it's a fact. They were educated in a different way. And someone like myself, who's really self-taught, they usually, if they do recognize them, it's when they're just about ready to die.
Mm.
So it's you know that part of it is hard for me because I think I have a lot to give back to the world. I know that my contribution in the music touring business has been large. I know that. I know that I really have affected people because not because I'm playing the music, but that I'm able to focus the energy and the attention on the music and the artist in a way that, really has made a difference. But very rarely do I get that acknowledgement as an artist. It's a funny trade, and you can go on Broadway and I have amazing friends, designers on Broadway, and they're and Cirque du Soleil and other you know entertainments, but we all face that same I guess it's that same problem of who are you? Because light is really ephemeral. It's
Mm.
there and then it's gone.
Right. So a
So
canvas is something that's permanent. And when you
yeah,
create art, unless they've done a DVD or recorded the performance, what you've done is seen by the audience and then it disappears and goes to the next act.
yeah, and honestly, the recordings on the DVD and the YouTube stuff, and hundreds of millions of people have watched. I mean, I've added up the numbers, but it's not the same.
Right.
There is nothing that can compare to sitting in an audience of 80,000 people and the aisles are empty because everyone is just fixated on
Right.
what's happening.
Spellbound.
You don't see that much. It's a different world now.
Yeah.
And mostly the lights are in your eyes rather than you facing forward. And that's fine. Things change. But I used to get a lot of pleasure. I knew I was doing my job really well when I would be in the middle of a show and the aisles were just empty. No one was getting a call. They weren't even going to the bathroom. I mean, David's playing and band's just rocking it, and the visual is right in sync. And sync is really probably the most important part of what I do is that I'm completely always in sync to what's going on. Again, it's not my music. I'm kind of like the icing on the cake. But
Well,
if it
let's.
wasn't in sync, it
Mhm.
would people would start fidgeting. That much it's a really subliminal, subconscious effect that I do,
Mhm.
but it's never really been recognized. You recognized it because I've spoken to you a couple times, and
Sure.
I know when I speak to people and they really get it, they don't know what to say to me except, "Oh man, you're really a genius." But it's not so much that I'm a genius; it's just that I'm a fan also, and
Mm.
that. And it's almost this is what I saw David Bowie on um, Ziggy Stardust tour. I was really that fortunate. I remember sitting in like the last row of the Tower Theater in Philadelphia, and I had my ex-wife next to me. She was my girlfriend at the time. And I felt so embarrassed. I had the worst seats. I thought I'm not going to I'm not going to get lucky that night. So but the show was so amazing, and the lighting designer at the time, he was really great, and he really, besides Bowie being just amazing, it really it felt like we were right in the first row. And I remember my girlfriend grabbing my leg a couple of times, like she was so blown away. So that really was the start of how I got where I got.
Be great.
Sorry for rambling.
No, that's okay, Mark. I'm actually really tuned into it and really enjoying it already. So I wanted to talk to you about the genesis of it. It sounds like you've been inspired, and I wanted to talk about your leg into the industry and how did you know it was going to be the lighting industry, and then I don't know how long. I know you came in towards to help Pink Floyd back in 79 or 80 with something. Were you working in the industry prior to that?
Oh yeah, so when I was 15 years old, I I went to the second oldest public high school in America called Central High School in Philadelphia. It was an all boys school. It was a college prep, and it's graduated some of the greatest minds in the world and senators and all kinds of people. Even Larry Fink, I think his name is, the guy, one of the Three Stooges. He graduated Central, um, and um, and somehow I got put in charge of the sock hop, whatever it was called. And at the time it was 1967, so I found a light show. This guy out in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania, and I rented his light show and him to come and be the entertainment along with a band. And that moment was probably really was so exhilarating that I decided with the two other friends of mine that I would build a light show. My other friend would be the DJ, and we go around. We had an inn to a Gamble and Huff and Cameo Parkway Records, so we could sell 45 records and meet girls on the weekend and make some money. And then I did that through, the time I graduated high school. And that kind of started it. And then phone started ringing, and I got a phone call from the WIP radio in Philadelphia. I think I was 16 years old. I don't know how they got my number. Maybe it was one of the sons or daughters that told the parents, but they wanted me to do their monthly, I guess they were like a convention, right? Once a month. So the first gig I did was Johnny Mathis. Then it became Wayne Newton. Then it was Duke Ellington. Then it
Wow.
was Count Basie. And then it was Maynard Ferguson. And it went on and on with that type of entertainment. So I needed to rent lights. So now and I had just started college. So I was renting lights from this company in Philadelphia, and I was doing these shows. Well, I didn't last very long in college. I lasted 6 months and they kicked me out because I didn't go to gym. And my dad, the best, he was always the best. And he just said to me, I guess you got to get a job now. Like he didn't get into my stuff because I flunked out of college. He just said, I guess you got to get a job. Why don't you go down to that lighting company and get a job there? It seems to be something that's working for you.
Hmm.
At least temporarily do it and so you can get going. And that really started the whole process. I never set out to do what I'm doing. It just happened around me.
So, how did you start to like the lighting company down the road? Did you immediately start falling in love with the craft? Was it a gradual thing? And also, did somebody take you under their wing and start to really tutor you about it?
No, I started sweeping floors at that company,
Okay.
and I became an apprentice, and um, and the guy that I was working with, this company had been there for 50 years. It was a union shop. It serviced all the colleges, universities, all the theaters in Philadelphia, the Academy of Music, all these really established entertainment venues. They supplied all the equipment. So next thing you know, I was in the union in Philadelphia. I was working a union stagehand. And I was working with Jose Limon Ballet. I mean, the opportunities that came to me was like going to college. But the man who was running the business was a 63-year-old guy called Lou Kellman. And Lou Kellman was really interesting because he a film producer. He created an animated series in Philadelphia. He made a film with Jane Mansfield and Dick Gregory back in the early '60s. It bombed because it was the first black man with a blonde woman, and that back in the early '60s was just not allowed. And so he bombed, and now he was running this lighting company, and he was brilliant. But he also had cousins because back in the 60s, he used to shoot football games, high school football games. And one of his nephews saw this and thought, oh, why don't we do it for real? And that's how NFL film started. It started from Lou's nephews. And so NFL Films was one block over from my warehouse. Sigma Sound Studios was like across the street. And Garrett Brown was friends with Lou. Garrett Brown invented the Steadicam. So again, all this knowledge and experience was around me, and I just absorbed it. And inside of that, I was 19, 20 years old. I didn't really, I didn't go to school. I needed to eat. So just I figured here I am. I didn't really even give it thought at that time. And then I was a huge Bruce Springsteen fan, and he was huge in Philadelphia before he became huge everywhere else. Luckily, I got a gig at the college because I serviced these colleges and they had to supply lighting for Bruce. And I did a gig for him, and I guess it was 73, I think it was, 74 at Widener College. And I knew all the cues. It was in my head. And his manager was mixing the sound. And after the show, he said, "You got to meet Bruce." So I went backstage, I met Bruce, and Bruce even noticed it on stage that the drama was there. Like I had my own, not really thinking about it. It just came out of me. And yeah. So that
Wow.
started the whole process. And then, I can say my dad always told me, it's hard to hit a moving target.
Mm. So you were kind of addicted to growth, and it sounds like you were passionate about what you were doing.
Yeah, again, I needed to eat. So, it was survival. I think,
Survival. Yeah.
I think it was survival, but it was also a different time in the early 70s. It was really, you know, you could feel the revolution around you, unlike today. It was really actually people were right after Woodstock, people were really, wanting things to be different like today. But it was gentler and softer. At least it was more idealistic. It felt I mean, sure, there was a lot of violence and that there was those moments that happened also.
Right.
But, I was right there with it. I'm like an old hippie, and I
Mhm.
think that's the art part of it. That's where the art side of me came
Okay.
out.
Okay. So move us a little bit further. So how did you there's a lot of stories revolving around the Wall and the Wall tour with Pink Floyd, and there was some type of issue. I don't know, it was technical or I'm not quite sure, but you had to come in and really help them out on their tour. What was that about, and how did they
So I
utilize your
started working with Bruce, and that was pretty much most of the 70s. And inside of that, because of those shows, a lot of people noticed my work. And unbeknownst to me, one night, Roger Waters and Alan Parker went to a Springsteen show while Roger was putting the wall together. I didn't know they were in the audience. The night before they opened the wall in 1980 in February, my phone rang in the afternoon at my house in West LA. And the phone call was, the man said, "I'm Steve O'Rourke. I'm Pink Floyd's manager, and we're having a bit of a problem down here." And I, I knew Floyd had been in town for 2 months building the wall. Everybody in LA knew that. I mean, it was like, and everybody knew it was going to open, and I wasn't going. I didn't have tickets, and I thought it was probably a British friend of mine winding me up. I couldn't figure out who it was, so I said, "Great, I need 25 tickets," and there was silence on the phone. And then he says to me, "I don't think you understand. I am Steve O'Rourke. I am Pink Floyd's manager. We're having a bit of a problem. We would like you to come, down to help us, or if you're too busy, I'll call someone else." And I went, and in a very British, very, you know, boom. And then I realized, oh shit. So yeah, I said, "I'll be right down," and went down, and it was the day before, and they showed me around, and it was just like it was overwhelming. And
So,
that's where I met Mark Fisher and I met Robbie Williams. Mark Fisher was the architect designer, and
mhm,
Robbie Williams was the production manager.
okay.
And I met Roger and met Gerald Scarf. And they said, well, what do you think? And I went, I need to see it. Well, we're having a dress rehearsal at 8. Would you come back? And I went, sure, I'll come back. So I went back at 8 o'clock. And when I went back, I had a set of 3x5 cards with me. And I took notes on the 3x5 cards. And after the rehearsal, Roger took me in his trailer and he said, well, what do you think? And I said, well, first of all, unbelievable. I mean, this is the largest scale opera ever. I mean, this is beyond anything that anybody could ever imagine.
Mhm.
And he said, well, let's focus on the lighting. And I started telling him what I felt. And he said, well, and then he says, what are those? And I went, they're my notes. And he goes, well, give me an example. And I gave him an example of everything was on from the very beginning. But when you got to, I said, you should not have everything on. And you should wait to bring the cherry pickers, which were these like hydraulic lifts with spotlights on them. You shouldn't bring those up until another brick in the wall, part two, where there's a helicopter sound and it should start in darkness.
Yes.
And I said that to him. He turned to Steve O'Rourke and he said, get me Graham. And later, this guy walks in. Roger looks at him. He goes, you're fired. You have cotton in your ears. You're dismissed. And he sent him on his
Wow.
way. And then he looked at me. He goes, you have 18 hours by my estimate to turn whatever's on those cards to turn the show around. You're dismissed. And I walked out of the trailer and I was like, there were like 200 people working on the show the night before. And I was just out there by myself. And then, they all knew that something had happened. Graham had left. Graham, actually, we got to be friends. But, at that moment, I had a target on my back.
So that's a lot of pressure, and that's what I call a level up moment. How did you rise to that? I mean, some people would crumble. How did you stay centered and focused around that?
I, you know, the, part of me, uh, I just knew I had a job. I wanted the job, and I knew what I had to do. I just go and I'm respectful always to everyone I meet. I'm always, hi, how you doing? And I listen to what's going on, or I observe. And then, like with our exchange right now, then I'll start talking. And sometimes I don't stop, but I just push myself to a place with respect toward everyone so I can really understand the situation I'm in and calculate somehow my brain calculates it and I'm not always correct. I don't think anybody is, but there was always and it's almost, and I hate to say this, 'cause I'm not patting myself on the back, but it feels selfless to me. I feel like it's selfless that I need to do something. I need to try to add to what's going on in the situation, and that works out. And literally, I next night I ran the show, and as in the words of the band, I became the hero.
Wow. So you trust your process, it sounds like. It sounds like you just get
I don't
moving.
know any other way. It's not. I don't even question it.
Wow.
I
Okay.
don't. I don't. It's not. It's not that it's trust, because I'm wrong. I mean, I'm probably wrong more times than I'm right, and I get overexcited, and I can't shut up sometimes, but I've learned over the years how to accept who I am. That I can't change it. I was born this way, and that's it. As long as I don't kill anybody or I don't lie and I don't cheat, and I'm kind of if I'm this way, I'm not a bad person. So it's either going to work and I'm going to get acceptance from the group or from people around me, or even in my paintings, I'm going to do what I feel. And if they don't work, well, I'll just keep going. I don't judge myself. I mean, I do judge my behavior when I do things that I probably shouldn't do over the years.
Right.
But in the last 25 years, that's kind of calmed down now.
Okay. So when you make a mistake, you don't get stuck there. You kind of like evaluate it and move forward.
Yeah.
Okay. So it doesn't stay with
And
you.
and the idea of a mistake, well, it's like failure. People fail, but to
Right.
me, failure is education immediately. It's like, oh, it didn't work. Okay, well, then I'll look at it and try to move forward. It doesn't always work, but I guess, at the end of the day, I think it really depends on what you really want out of life, and a lot of people really want power or they want money or they want, their egos are talking most of the
Right.
time.
What did you want out of life at that time?
I just wanted to be, I wanted happiness. I think
Mhm.
I wanted happiness. I've always wanted happiness, and I've wanted, I didn't ever feel like, I mean, I've had really dark moments and I've been down at the very bottom of wherever you could be, but that was my own fault by doing things that put me there. But aside from that, I really just wanted happiness and love, really, at the end of the day, just like I think everybody does. Well, maybe not everybody. A lot
Well,
of people
Mark,
really.
I got to say this, like David Gilmour is what heaven would sound like. Your lighting is what heaven would look like. And I don't say that mildly. I don't say that, I say that with conviction. And you really have a sense for how to marry together the light with the music and the sound and the mood of it. And you really accentuate. Like, I just think about what you did in Sorrow, and that was the most recent tour, Luck and Strange. And just a combination of those beautiful LEDs and the lasers at those quieter moments within the middle of the song, just and then the flashing in the end and just the lights going crazy and have a more of a frenetic feel. And I just feel like you add a texture, you add a curtain, you add elements that just bring everything together so beautifully. It seems like you really connect well with David, actually.
Well, David, believe me, I'll some now I kind of watch. I mean, I can't help but watch things because of the algorithms, and they always feed me stuff onto my screen at home. I mean, like I have YouTube TV. I can't get away from, like all kinds of Pink Floyd stuff. I guess they figured out who I was. I don't know. And so sometimes I'll hit it. Actually, I hit it during the tour during Luck and Strange. I remember we played LA. I went home. And there, right on YouTube, was the show. I was like, "What the fuck? How can they have the show?" It was some guy in the audience was there. He filmed it, and it was up there already. And I was watching it from the audience, and I'd never done that before because I got a smart TV a couple years ago, a couple of them, and it just blew me away that I could watch it like a playback.
Yep.
And I thought to myself, he David is, yeah, I mean, it just flows through him, and he's just the master, and just he's exactly that way in real life. He's just himself, um and there aren't words that describe David Gilmour, but
So what we see in his performances is who he is, and it sounds like you really have an affinity for him.
yeah, no, and he's just, yeah, I mean, he's very human. This is probably the best way to describe David.
Too,
And
right?
yeah, yeah, and we're all there, but we all have jobs to do
Right,
around him, and
right.
he's very good at being able. His instincts are really good at being able to, you know, judge what's going on. But he's always trusted me is
Mhm.
is is the word I'm going to use. And so sometimes I think, well, if I wasn't there and I wasn't flashing the lights and I wasn't, how, I mean, I'm not that important. I think that's the other reason why I started painting, because I didn't always want to be riding on Pink Floyd's fame, and because I'm not Pink Floyd, I'm a hired hand basically. And sure, it might be great, but like I wanted something for myself, for my own name.
Something to call your own that really distinguished who you are, and you want the world to be able to see that as well.
Yeah. And I it just it just happens. Um things just happen. go back and look at Sorrow back from 1987, again, being served by YouTube. And it was different, but we built these special boxes because he said to me one time, he goes, "Did you ever see Dr. No?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "They had I forget what they were called, these boxes." And he says, "I really would love to be able to stare into this light just flashing, like those Cyclops boxes." So I built these color wheels that were doing like 75,000 RPM with 5,000-watt HMI lights in them. I mean, it was insane what we built. And he would stare into the boxes. And then I built some other lights, and that was Sorrow. So there was this progression of how Sorrow started in 87 all the way through to 2024.
And then there was also, of course, the Pulse Tour '94. And so Sorrow had those amazing lasers that kind of went in and out like a V.
Yeah,
Um,
those lasers, the gold lasers were Bill Clinton inspired.
really, tell me more about that.
That was when Bill Clinton took over, and he was talking about all the military spending and the military industrial complex have all these top secret, and they have a thing called Star Wars and the Star Wars lasers. And I went, "Really? Star Wars lasers? I want those." So I call up somebody and I said, "Get me, I want to find out who makes the Star Wars lasers. I want them." And the next thing you know, it's Hughes Aircraft, and they fly me down in a private helicopter. Because back then, being part of Pink Floyd, a lot of things happened. And I went down to their research facility in La Jolla and put in a room with about 10 of their genius engineers. And they're all really excited to meet me because these guys are in rooms all day long, and they're really, I could tell immediately in the room that I was with some really talented, intelligent, guys that are just beyond, but they're dealing with like, you know, management all the time, marketing people. I've toured a lot of different laboratories like that, Bell Labs back in the day, and these guys would be their inventions were beyond anything you could ever imagine, but they never saw the light of day because the marketing people didn't think it would sell. There was always somebody else. So I knew that feeling where I like in myself, I want to do things. I come up with things. I can't tell you how many different projects I've had that the marketing people shut me down. So I said to them, they were really excited. I said, "So what do you guys got?" Because they were really, because I was like something new, it was fresh air, right? And the first guy up, I always remember, he goes, "Well, we could ionize the air over the stadium." I go, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "Well, we'll get the energy, we'll suck all the energy out. It'll make this big boom, like a sonic boom without, flying over." And I said, "That's going to be really loud and scary." He goes, "Yeah, yeah, it'll be great. It's boom." And I went, "Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, but okay, who's next?" And this guy in the corner raises his hand and goes, "I've been thinking you use lasers, but I think you need to use these copper vapor lasers." And I go, "What are those?" He goes, "Well, they split isotopes. They're 50-watt lasers." Now, most lasers back then were like, 5 watts, 10 watts, and they were made out in California, Mountain View, California. And I said, 50 watts. Oh my, that's dangerous. He goes, "Oh yeah, no, they're dangerous." And he gave me the address. And next thing you know, I'm on a plane to Oxford, UK. And they set up a demo for me because again, the Pink Floyd name really held a lot of, um,
Wait.
and opened all kinds of doors. And by then I'd done the Barcelona Olympics, Genesis. I know I was doing McCartney. I was at pretty much at the top of the food chain at that point. And it really doesn't really matter and what I did. But then I thought, okay, it opened doors, and they demoed these for me, and I said, "I'll take them. I want them." But it came with, we had to figure a way to take them on the road, and we got all that done. But every night I had to have an FAA spotter on the stage to make sure I didn't shoot planes out. That's
Oh, jeez. Oh, I remember hearing about that. Wasn't there supposed to be a blimp at one of these some of these
We
shows?
did. We had blimps. We had a blimp. That was Steve O'Rourke. That was a marketing thing along with, I think it was the guy, I see his face. I can't remember his name, the guy from Columbia Records. I think it was before Sony. It was Columbia. And that was a big, so a really funny story about that. So we had this blimp. It would show up and it was painted. It was promotional. And we could get rides in the blimp if we wanted it because it would fly over the towns we were playing. So we're getting ready to play the Rose Bowl. And I'm home. My house is right, you know, in Western Malibu, and the ocean's right there. And I remember just going out on my balcony, suddenly I see the blimp flying by like that, and on our day off. And he's heading north. But our next show after Rose Bowl is in Phoenix. So he should be flying east. So I called the manager up. I go, I just saw the blimp going north. Where's he going? And Steve, like the next day we find out the guy was picking up his girlfriend in San Francisco, and and then he was going to fly to Phoenix. He got in a little bit of trouble, but
It sounds like it. Was there something about was it all about the air traffic stuff, or was there something about the laser itself? Or I
the
think that,
laser was really power. No, they were really dangerous lasers. They were.
okay,
So
that's what I
I
had
mean,
heard.
I'm really respectful of all that, and I never everything we had to do, we did to the
Okay.
T. So the FAA spotter in every city he'd be there, and we'd be in touch with air traffic control. A lot of times the stadiums were near the landing of the major airports, so we would know when a plane was coming in. And sometimes I couldn't use the lasers because we there was a plane coming in a couple cities. It wasn't a big deal. It was something you respected, and there were laws and you had to abide by them.
So there were a lot of adjustments you had to make sometimes during concerts. Um, you probably could include certain things in certain cities and certain things that you couldn't in other. Also, was there a lot of differences between indoor and outdoor venues?
Well,
Was there problematic things with that?
look, outdoors you got the weather, and
Right.
the weather is amazing. And lasers in the rain look amazing. Wind is always something you have to really respect, and you have to respect Mother Nature. But the most important thing about both indoors and outdoors is that you would never see the lights without smoke. And I
Yes.
became the emperor of smoke in the industry. I starting in the 80s, I found a way through mostly movie technology they had been using in the film industry forever. And I put that on steroids, and I built these huge smoke machines, and I would just line them up around the tracks in these stadiums and just let them go because the wind would take it. If you had enough, I learned that the currents sometimes it would be calm, but most of the time there'd be some sort of wind and it would shift. The direction would shift, and you couldn't. But I had to have the smoke because that's the canvas. You wouldn't see the light without the smoke.
When we were at Luck and Strange, we were there on the 6th, 5th and 6th of November, 2024. And as soon as we entered Madison Square Garden, that place was filled with smoke. And then you would see periodically the smoke would start from the floor, and sometimes you'd see it coming from above. And you could tell when you guys are getting ready for like lasers and stuff too, because those things would ramp up. And I remember
Well,
during
it was the whole show. It was mostly those LEDs. You wouldn't see those beams. You wouldn't see the a ceiling of light was 3,000 LEDs above,
okay.
and they focused. They went from 5 degrees to 50 degrees. They had lenses, and but if you had no smoke, you wouldn't have seen anything. You wouldn't even have really seen the color. And so the smoke was constant. I mean, David's amazing. A lot of artists now, I don't know, a lot of people started bad mouthing smoke and people started blaming it. And the consistency of the actual smoke changed over the years. But even with that, I rolled with it. Again, I respect scientific findings and medical conditions and things like that. David's always been just again so supportive and I think a part of him actually, I think for entertainers being out there, I think it's probably like a blanket. Maybe I might, maybe if he heard me say that, he just give me his shark eye. But I mean, like, I just think that he understands what it means and what the process is. And yeah,
I noticed something. Oh, sorry. I noticed something in the beginning at 5 a.m., the first song at Madison Square Garden. And I noticed that there's obviously 5 a.m., so I guess it was the red beam, the morning, right? But I noticed that that beam was kind of light and then it started to fill in and get brighter. Was that all on purpose, like to make it
yeah,
a
yeah, no,
daylight?
so while I'm running the show, people don't know this, but usually I'm talking to like 10 or 12 people at once. And
Okay.
it's not written down. It's not like a stage manager when you see in Hollywood on these films where they have a sheet of paper. Okay, stand by, cue number 5, 6, 7, 8, stand by and go. It's no, from the time I put the headsets on to the time I take them off, it's all in my head. And I just roll with it. And sometimes shit blows up, and and sometimes people screw up on the lights above and around me. I mean, in '87, I had 12 guys or 14 guys, and they all had different technologies. That's now a standard way of doing shows, but it was, I saw something. I saw all this technology, and I wanted to create my own orchestra, I guess my own band.
So
So
like,
I started and I'm talking to everybody the whole time while I have a monitor in my ear of the music right from the stage. I have my own mix. And so I'm not listening to the PA. I'm actually, got it. That's why I'm not deaf yet. 'Cause I,
so I wanted to ask you because there is a lot of stuff going on. There might be pigs, there might be those giant mirror balls, there might be the plane coming down during On the Run. Is that all part of your team and also the screen and everything like that? Do you have multiple people doing all that? That's all
yeah,
you?
I'm queuing everything. Um, and, um, and again, the difference between Luck and Strange and probably when I started with Bruce was when I started in '87. Like I said, I assembled this band of technicians. And so I gave up actually operating the technology. I would just direct the show. And so I was taking care of all those elements. On Luck and Strange, I went into it realizing, my age and all of us, and I wanted to run a show one more time. And so and it's over there. The actual console is my computer. It's just on the other side of,
Right.
and I created this software that would allow me to paint with light um, in the moment,
Wow.
um, and also call the show and operate. And so the smoke, the sorrow stuff at the end of Sorrow, I mean, that's all me. I mean, there's my wife and other people would sit behind me and it was fun. I mean, I knew that I'd probably never get a chance to do that again. Nobody calls me. Like, the funny part about me is after I do a show like that, and you speak very highly, but for me, I never get any phone calls to do it again. Nobody ever wants me to. I mean, I haven't had one phone call since Luck and Strange. I
Why
haven't
is
had.
that?
It used to really bother me a lot, and I used to. It would make me feel actually less than worthy. Um, these days, I don't. Again, the painting kind of offsets the fact that I see my work, and I've inspired a lot of people. I'm taught in some universities. My work is used as an example. Matter of fact, it wasn't my work, but my daughter she's taking a college course this summer at SCAD. And her first day, she's a senior in high school, but this is actually a college accredited course at SCAD. She'll get college credit. And she's gone for the month, and it's been great for all of us. And she calls me up at first class, and she says, "You're not going to believe what happened." I go, "What?" She goes, "My graphic arts teacher she wanted us to watch a movie to start with. She says it was a movie about Storm. And I went, no. She goes, yeah. I said, did you say anything? She goes, no, I was too. She goes, David was on there and Storm and Poe. And she's like, because she knows them all. And she's 16, but she didn't know. Yeah, she knew Storm. Yeah, she knew Storm before he passed. She was young. She was what, 4 years old.
You
But
can you tell the viewers a little bit about Storm Thorgerson, if I'm pronouncing his last name correct?
I mean, just, he started with the band. I mean, he started with Pink Floyd. He was their graphic artist, and so was Poe, Aubrey Powell. And they started a company called Hypnosis, and they're responsible. Their
Yep.
most famous album cover is Dark Side of the Moon. But Storm as an individual is just, the complete maniac, creative genius of all time. He was a good friend. Um, he was he was Storm, I don't he could be impossible, but he also knew what he wanted.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you mean by impossible? Was he just it was a demanding kind of character
Yeah,
or
that's a good word.
okay. Guess we hit that one.
But it was really funny because my daughter, it's the first thing. And then her third day at school was last week, and that's when at the Empire State Building, that couple jumped up and went all the way up to the top. So just because I've been there 14 years, my daughter and I, my wife, we went, like, there's a level they take the stars to for photo ops and things right below where these people then went up. And she called me up. She goes, "Oh my God, what are you doing? You're starting to, like, embarrass me." Like, and I said, "Well, what is it? Nepo baby times?" It was just weird that both of those things happened in her first week. But the influence, I guess, is cool. But getting back, I mean, we got on this because I really don't get any phone calls. And when I did I think it was like 18 months ago, I got a couple calls from some new bands. I got excited and I went up and I saw them. And, there was this immediately, it was like dad walked into the room.
Mm,
I mean, that's cool, but I really don't look, I mean, okay, but my brain is still
sharp.
like 25. If not, for no other reason except I have the knowledge and experience. But they wanted me to create a mood board for them. The mood board means you take out images from other people's shows to say your show is going to look like that. And meanwhile, most of those shows have copied my shows, and I kind of went. I was just like, I'm sorry, I can't. I got no. Because I mean, I'm an original thinker. I think out of everything I can say, egomaniacal or not, I have original thought all the time.
Well, I've seen your progression, as I mentioned to you on the phone. I mean, I've been following you since, at least 88, when I saw you at Giant Stadium during Momentary Lapse of Reason, and the live album was Delicate Sound of Thunder. And I was telling you about that single, the screen during Signs of Life, and that one single laser, that red laser, and then bringing it forward to,
It was green.
it was what?
It was green.
During Signs of Life?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
That one that went down like that and up?
Yeah.
Oh,
But
we have to
see,
do we
but
have to
that's
do
a
a fact
really
check on that.
be okay. I was just messing around, but I mean, be it green or red, the fact that that's kind of the same going back to Roger in the beginning of all this. I only had one beam come down. I let the film, which is Storm's film, do the work. David's music's there. He's kind of just barely lit,
Mhm.
just as you hit that, dun, and they play that chord. And just that simple picture, that's what I do. I mean, it's just that moment just brings people into the energy, you
So
know.
knowing when to be simple and then more grandiose, and if we think about like songs like
Think.
Run Like Hell during the Pulse tour, I mean, you did everything but blow up the stage, and
I did at the end. I blew up the screen. So
exactly.
but
That's my
Run Like Hell, when Roger told me about it back in 1980, because the album had just come out or was just coming out, and he said to me, he goes, "Well, Run Like Hell is a parody. It's basically, fascist rock and roll. It's like what it would be the the absolute everything kitchen sink, just this parody of rock and roll. And so they told me to go crazy for Run Like Hell, make it just bigger than anything could ever happen. So over the years, it became this, in Pompeii, David's on the film, they're all wearing sunglasses because it
Right.
was insane.
Yep.
But they had fun with it. That was Polly's idea to give them the sunglasses. I thought it was brilliant. I thought
So, and at the end, you had the pyrotechnics all around the top that exploded. Did
I did.
you were obviously able to get permission to do that?
Well, what happened was when we went to Pompeii, the first thing I was said I wasn't going to build I hate the steel, all the steel it takes to hold these shows. If you look at Genesis in 92, I got rid of the steel
Okay.
and I did everything with wires and tracks. And there is no steel. There is no that normal stage that gets built with, trucks and trucks and trucks of steel. At Pompeii, I looked at it, and I mean, I'm in this most amazing place ever, and Vesuvius is out in the distance, and I just thought, all I wanted to see was the stage and the band at one end because the film from 1971 was similar. They were just down in the middle of the field with nothing, no production. But I did want the screen. I thought the screen was important. So we found a way to rig the screen without the steel. And that was at Pompeii. And then what I did was I put torches all the way around because I imagined back then that they lit it that way. They must have had torches or lights around, not light, but torches, right? For
Sure.
light. And so there was torches all the way around the top. We put lights all the way around the rim, and then we rigged it with pyro. And
Amazing.
it was fun. It was fun. Pompeii was amazing. I thought that was probably out of all the videos I ever had to watch, the really quiet moments of Pompeii for me are probably some of the most beautiful visual cinematic film that's ever been
Mhm.
shot of my work that really feels like you're there. Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed.
Is that your favorite? Like if we talked about Delicate Sound of Thunder, Pulse, Pompeii, The Wall, did you have a favorite tour or and was there one single show that you really was like a
No,
ethereal?
I loved everything. I mean, I
Okay.
loved everything, man. It's too good. It's just, I mean, I loved everything with Bruce when I was with Bruce. I'm in it, I'm in it. That's why last tour I went back to operating again because I wanted to feel like I was in it again. But I'm always in it. A lot of times when I'm not in it, when I would go out and try to do other acts there's a lot of noise around it. There's managers, marketing people, wives, everything else. Um, and then, it's not vision. It's what it is. It's like, it's the message kind of gets diluted and it's not so much fun. So I'm kind of like I'm very particular and maybe that's why the phone doesn't ring. I'm not I'm not Costco, I'm kind of and no offense to that. I'm not I'm not I'm a little bit more, you know, just different and without being an asshole about it. You know, I think it's really important that I get to do what I do. I listen to people, but that I'll interpret it, you know.
Do you sometimes kind of hold your ground a bit when you're really certain about something?
Oh yeah, I'll walk out.
Okay.
I've left. I mean, I feel like, and people have to be on time. I'm like, I have a couple little,
Stickler.
well, yeah, I mean, sometimes, it's like somebody that was just a really giant rapper. He's not giant. They took him down. I don't know, whenever it was. But you know, I went in the room, had a meeting. I'm always early. My dad, again, always told me early bird catches the worm. He had these words of wisdom, my father. He was a poet, and he just, even though he was a carpet salesman, he was a poet. He had amazing. He just yeah. Anyway, so I show up early. I get in the room at a hotel in Beverly Hills and sitting there waiting. And I usually wait about 15 minutes before I say anything. And 15 minutes came up, and I said, "Hey, look, if he's busy, cool. Let's reschedule because I have other meetings and I don't want to be late for my other meetings, and this will take a while." And we're kind of like, the clock's ticking. And they're all like, they just look at me, staring at me like, "You're not going anywhere." And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean it." I'm like, I gotta go. I'm sorry. I mean, I get it. He's a busy guy. It's cool. And finally, I just got up. Now, most people wouldn't do that. They wouldn't get up, and I started walking to the door. And as I got to the door, I opened it up and there he was. So he looked at me and I looked at him, and obviously he knew that it was a face he didn't know. And I smiled and said, "Hey man, how you doing?" I said, "I was just leaving because you were late and I gotta go. So we gotta, I can't be late for my next meeting." And he didn't like that at all.
Oh,
No. And so I sat down and we had the meeting, but like nothing ever happened. There's another really funny story. Like I met Simon and Garfunkel. They wanted in 2003, and I mean they were late, but it was raining out, thunderstorms, New York City. It was really bad. Eddie Simon, Paul's brother, was like the only guy in the office, and he's telling me they're stuck in traffic, and I'm thinking, okay. So 45 minutes later, they 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 walk in, and I'm sitting there, and it's really hot out, humid, New York City, and I have no socks on, and so we start talking. And a lot of times I don't wear socks, and that was 2003. Suddenly, Paul stops and he goes, "Hey, Artie, he's not wearing socks." And I went, Artie looks over and he goes, "Yeah, you're right, Paul. He's not wearing socks." And like right away, I'm like, uh, why? It was like, why? And I went, "Oh, I'm from Philly, but I live at the beach and I walk around without socks, but sometimes I walk around barefoot too. I mean, I don't know. It's hot outside. I'm not wearing socks." Well, that meeting lasted about 10 minutes and I didn't get the job, and I was like banned for life.
jeez.
Yeah, that's kind of like taking the what was it, Van Halen with the brown M&Ms. They took him out of that
Yeah,
was a
yeah.
famous story. Same deal, man. You meet all kinds of people, and power really changes things.
Yes.
Power,
Yeah.
power and money.
Hmm.
And
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 but you
it,
also
it could
have
be good or bad. I mean, I've
right.
been in some of the biggest rooms in the world with some of the richest people on the planet. And it can be great, or it's you kind of just want to get out of there.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, you want to be able to be yourself with self-integrity, and we're gonna show up, but we're not going to be accepted in all the rooms, and we have to also be okay with that. And God's delays are not God's denials in a sense where, obviously you've gotten the work that you've needed to get. And what I wish for you though is that people would understand what they're going to get in terms of the product, because your resume is all over YouTube and your
Yeah,
work
but
is stellar.
but people don't understand it because I think I'll go back to that point. Being in the audience, you understand it. Not being in the audience and seeing it on YouTube or watching it on
Mhm.
Instagram, it's just like everybody else. I'm just thrown into the dog pile, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And like I said, hundreds of millions of views of all this work over the years from all the different acts. And yeah, I'd like to probably be I would like to at least be acknowledged that the art, the painting, people seem to like it of what I've done. They like the lighting. I also have light art. I have sculptures in the gallery across the way that really look amazing, but no one wants to give it to me. It's kind of weird. I mean, like Storm is a great example. Storm and Poe both, they put out books, but my work doesn't really work inside a book. I mean, these photographs behind me are really cool. The ones on the lower level, the ones on the upper level are paintings. But I an exhibition, even an exhibition could be really cool. Like there's light artists out there. And their exhibitions are like, oh, in the big, big museums. But that's, they don't like quiet 100,000 people or be on be on a barge in the middle of the Grand Canal where there's 350,000 people and then the government is like resigns the next morning. I mean, and then I wonder, well, what's the difference between what I do and what they do? And there isn't, except that the curators and the people in charge, it's below them. It's kind of, we're not worthy coming from the music business. But if the artists came and said they were light artists, like when Jay-Z did a I don't know, installation at MoMA or something, that's allowed. But anybody that's below him, underneath him, if there was a guy working for Jay-Z who did what I did and it was really amazing, they wouldn't get an exhibition. And that's the part that I don't get, you know. I don't get that.
That must be frustrating in a way because you've had a level of success and you have a tremendous passion and you're wanting to kind of transmute that at this point in your life and wanting it to be more in the physical realm, like you're creating paintings. And I think you also talked about a book, right?
Well, yeah, I started. I've always kind of resisted because I never wanted to be. Now I was here, now I was there, now I did that because it was too ego driven. And um, also, I'm lazy, so for me to sit behind the computer typing away, I'm a good writer, but I really wanted it to be now. I've had scripts for 25 years, easily, maybe 30. Excuse me. I started the first one like 33 years ago. And I have lots of scripts and I have a great story. And as a matter of fact, I once related that story to someone with a really famous TV series that changed, and I don't want to bring it up, but my ending, I told him my ending, and then I saw it a year and a half later on his because when I told it to him, I remember his reaction. But I know that I have the talent and the right, from my knowledge and experience, I have the right formula. Like I even tried at one point when the internet was first coming out, I bought the largest BBS, the bulletin board services. They had 250,000 people subscribe to a text-only Dungeons and Dragons game. Now, Dungeons and Dragons going to the different levels is based on knowledge and experience. So I bought his code, this guy's code, and he became my partner. And I wanted to turn it into a graphic user interface, a GUI. And I did. I used my own money. And I wanted to turn it into an educational system because I realized back in 94, 95, the educational system in this country and the world really needed to keep up with what was going to happen in the world. So I wasn't suggesting throwing that out, but I was suggesting to give an alternative to what's being taught. And really what that was an understanding of capitalism and hope. And especially for the kids that are, don't have all the privileges I had. So I went and I was represented by one of the really big agencies in LA, and they sent me to all the big, EA, Sony, Disney, all of them. And they all looked at this because it was based on knowledge and experience. It was after school, and kids would go into these centers like storefronts or trailers, and I showed them the funding, and there was a way that kids would get paid, each level. So each level of knowledge, they would actually get cash, not points, not like kind of likes and this and that. They actually got cash so they could buy their Air Jordans and feel really good about it because that's the culture they were living in.
Okay.
Now, I mean, that's me, right? And I thought and the business plan, I had a couple other partners. The business plan worked out over 5 years. It was in the billions of dollars. And we're talking about the late 90s, right? And it was the beginning of the internet.
Mm.
Every one of those boardrooms, they told me, like, there's the door, go away, you know. And I
Wow.
and I was even accused of um, gambling, teaching kids how to gamble. And I'm like, no, I'm not teaching somebody how to gamble. I'm actually teaching, I'm giving people hope here so that this could then, once it's like the rock and roll shows, how they started, it was like the energy of that, it would become its own organism that I had nothing to do with. I could say, hey, look, I helped create this, but the idea of being able to give kids autonomy and also having money in their pocket, they're earning it, learning how to be doctors, lawyers. So the different rooms, there were 4,000 rooms. You could be anything you wanted to be because they got rid of trade schools. There's no more trade schools. This is like my real passion.
Yeah, I can
And
hear it in your voice. Yes.
yeah, and I went bankrupt. I went bankrupt. And about 3 years after that, there was a probably beginning of 2000, there was a very popular online kind of gathering place with different rooms. Only you had to pay the you had to pay to dress up, to buy clothes, to do all these things. But the economy was there and all these things were there. But what wasn't there, it was capitalism, but it was the kids had to buy from the site rather than the site, encouraging the kids and empowering the kids. That's never happened. And 20, I always wondered 25 years later, or whatever it is, 30 years later now, um, what what would happen if somebody had said yes to me?
Are you planning on revisiting that at all?
I have another one called Fee Fi Fo Fun. And it was another kids traveling play space. And I had big partners, and I
Yeah.
got in front of what was Hit Entertainment, Bob the Builder and all these. They have all these brands. They loved it. The woman CEO that was there at the time, she's ready to go with it. We're all ready to go. We even went and found a place to put the first one. It's traveling kids play space. Same concept where these young kids would learn, but done in a way not done in a way that isn't really benefiting them, not in the way they do now with, like we've seen lately in the news, right? I mean, this was real and it was traveling around. It was a network, all using technology. That's how these shows, I've learned how to use technology, assemble teams. And we got to the finish line. I called it the finish line. And um, yeah, same thing happened. Um, just as we were ready to do it, they fired that woman CEO and they brought in this British guy. And I remember going to the meeting with my partners. We're all in New York, and the guy like looked at me and they had me redo everything so I can include Bob the Builder and all their brands into my brands. I have 30 some characters that were created by Alan Aldridge, a really famous illustrator, kind of a
Mhm.
storm. He was storm like in the rock and roll business. He was my partner. And this guy looked at it and he just insulted us. And I got up and I said, "Nice meeting you," and just walked out the door. And it never happened. And I that's the part where I get really frustrated because these are the people that control. I'm an artist. These are the people that actually control our culture and how small-minded they are, whether they're afraid of things or whether they're fearful or whether they're just greedy. But they just talk about all this stuff, but they never put it into practice. They never take the risk. And that part of it is probably what drives me every day to wake up. I've given up on a lot of my ideas. Because there's a lot more of this stuff that never got done. So when you talk about failure, I never looked at it as failure. I was just, each time it was like another nail in my head. So when, I get in front of people, it's not that I'm kind of trained now to not be myself completely, because and maybe that's why the phone doesn't ring. Sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
unload on that, but
no.
I think it's important you just don't see me as It's just this, and I think that's part of the reason I don't have exhibitions. They go, he's just some little lighting guy that just does rock and roll shows, and now he's old, and
Yeah, but
that kind of thing.
but one of the distinctions I saw, and it wasn't talking about lighting, it wasn't talking about Pink Floyd, it wasn't talking about Bruce or the Empire State Building. When you talking about technology, and you talked about the kids, and you talked about, I guess, making a difference, there's a part of you that lit up,
Oh yeah,
and
no, but
in a
I
way that I hadn't seen, and I think that maybe you just don't have the right team around yet, or the right
I don't know. I
administration.
mean, I was being handled. I was being represented by top of back then. It was the top of the game in LA. I mean, and then the second version with Fee Fi Fo Fun, same deal. It was another big agency in New York, and it was the people that were in charge of these corporations.
Okay.
And I'm not anti-corporation or any of that stuff. It was the fact that everyone's so baked into their, comfort that they don't, the comfort is so enticing that they can then get arrogant. And when their arrogance actually, now, I'm not saying it's 100% because I have some relationships with some very powerful men and women, and they're wonderful.
What
And that part of it, that's probably, but at this point in my life, I would love to see a change there. And this isn't me yelling or screaming or taking anybody down. It's a reflection on their part to see what they could do in the moment rather than just being defensive or you see, because all those years that everybody wants to find out about, sure, rock and roll changed the world, everything, even down to people wearing badges around their necks, right? That changed the world. Everyone has badges, everybody wants access. That's what my film is about. It's about the access. And now what do you do with that access once you have it? You see, so yes, maybe it was the lighting. And just like I started this podcast, I didn't know how I got here, but I know I'm here and I still want to make a difference, but I've given up even trying to talk to people anymore. I mean, you reached out to me and I thought, oh, well, I'll try it again. And this could blow up in my face and people could get angry with me. Um, but it's good. I mean, I had to get that part of it out. I realized and that's what the book. So just to get back to the book, I started going at it a couple months ago. Actually, a year ago, I started a process. But now I'm really in it. Like in the last 2 months, I am deep in it, and my wife even likes it, which is like crazy. Like I gave her pages, and she goes, "This is really good." My wife graduated with a master's from Stanford, so she's like
smart. Yeah.
boom, and she's beautiful and smart and perfect. And I was blown away that she actually said that to me. So, but I also think what I just said was so important because I wonder every day now what the world would have looked like if someone had said yes to me. It wasn't that I was going to control the world. The world was going to like pick up on this technology, just like they picked up on social media. But that's kind of turned into not, it's cool, it's great, but it's also got a tone to it that has gotten out of control.
Book include elements of this that we're
Oh
talking
yeah.
about? Okay,
Oh
because
yeah.
that
Yes.
this
Yeah.
is going to be important. I think these chapters are going to be really important because I think that the chapters aren't finished in terms of what I believe
No.
you're going to contribute to the world. And I think you might be a bit frustrated, but I have a sense there's a breakthrough coming. And you're not somebody that gives up anyway.
Yeah, but I don't think I the only breakthrough it's coming is me actually vocalizing it like I just did. Because now I'm going, oh, what the fuck did you just do? Like, what are you saying? You're on a podcast, man. It's going to go out there. Why are you doing this? I mean, I'm also a great stand-up comic, but I've shut all that down for fear that it's never hit. And none of it, the only thing that's ever really hit is everybody wanting access backstage to Pink Floyd. In '94 in the Pulse concert, Mark Fisher, who's no longer with us, we designed the show together, and we have this huge mix area. And on the bottom, and he did it because we had this
Yeah.
ginormous mirror ball and he needed to put it somewhere. So
Yeah.
we put it at the back of this. And because of that, then I started adding in, okay, so the sound mixers in the first level. The second level was a 100-seat like VIP area, right? And underneath the VIP area is a nightclub where we set up the band, and the band would come out during intermission and also after the show and play. We called it the Donkey's Knob, and then right above that was the lighting deck, and behind that was the mirror ball, and it looked like its own like cruise ship out in the middle of the arena, and it blocked a lot of seats. I mean, there were less seats sold. And the promoter at the time, I always remember standing at what was it, the Orange Bowl down in Florida, and it's opening night, and I'm just standing there looking out at it, and he walks up to me, he goes, "What's that?" And I go, "What do you mean? That's a mix." He goes, "No, no, no. I see sound, I see lights, I see mirror ball. What's that big platform right in the middle?" I go, "Oh, that's friends and family. Since you own every seat in here and you've bought the band, you know." And he wanted everyone, he wanted to sell all the family and friends tickets also. And I said, "That's 100 seats for friends and family." And he looked at me and goes, "That's not on any ticket manifest." I went, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Yeah.
Uh,
It's
that
funny.
never happened again. We got away with it on that tour, but you know, I'm always that kind of rebel. But the stuff I was just talking about, the kids, that's probably out of my whole life. Just really was me, in a way that because I could remember when I fell into it and I got kicked out of college. I was just there. I was like, here, now what am I going to do? And so I felt that I could give back. I've always give back. I do it to young lighting designers. I have a bunch of people working at Empire State Building this summer, and it was really important to me that the idea. I think it's too late now, but I don't think anybody's ever done it anyway, or they might have. But there's so much noise out there that I don't think it would. And someone will probably hear it and then go do it, which is what happens a lot, about that idea.
So, so Mark, so plug whatever you need to plug now. I know I want to help you
Oh,
and I want to
I'm
support you.
just, I don't really, but it's markbrickman.com, paintings and what I guess there's other stuff up there. I have a team, people, really great people trying to get me forward. We finally got a bunch of people on Shopify in the last month, and everyone was really happy, and there were things in the cart, and I couldn't believe after 4 years of trying to do that, it's actually starting to work. But yeah, I mean, we'll just keep going. But I can't thank you enough for having me on. I hope
Well, I appreciate everything. I love the stories. I love the donkey's knob story. We talked about that on the phone. I really loved the progression of your work and how you described it and let us know about your creative process. And I really hope that the next things that you're germinating and creating come to life and come to fruition. You really deserve it. And in the future, I would love to have a part two where you're talking about the success of the next things, where we just talk
yeah,
about all the artwork and all the good stuff that you're creating now.
yeah, sure. I'm around, I'm around. I hope I didn't, I hope I wasn't negative at all because
No,
sometimes, okay,
no,
good.
no. The reason why is the goal of the podcast is the person. And it's is we're all human here. Everybody's human here. We all go through a lot of the same things. Life is hard enough, and with success, a lot of times people don't see the behind the scenes. And you illuminated certain things that people would never understand. They would be like, "Well, how is he not, getting phone call after phone call?" Because there's a lot more than that. And I think that also there's stage of life issues. As we all get a little bit older,
Oh
we also
yeah, absolutely.
start to also focus on giving back, making a difference, contribution, growing. And I think teaching is beautiful. And I think that you've been a very big support just being on this for me because this podcast thing for me is brand new and you're really a big part of
Well,
my
it's either going to
genesis.
make it or break it, right?
Yeah, well, hey, listen, I love my practice. I've been doing practice for 30 years with people and coaching people and as a therapist and as a coach. And this is just icing on the cake. And
That's good.
but it's all the same. It's all the same work. It's all
It
about
is.
relationship. It's all about evolution. It's all about growing. And I just really, really was so grateful for you getting back to me and so grateful that you're willing to do this with me. And I really wish you the best of luck. And I have a sense we're going to be friends. And I would love to be able to continue to chat with you over time and pick your brain and also show my appreciation for you.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you for reaching out. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, folks, this is Will Cook signing off from the Will to Win. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night, and thanks, Mark.
Okay. Take care.
Bye.